I quit playing a bard in Monsters and Memories. I quit because the only way I could comfortably play it appears to fall under the game's current automation policy. And I'm starting to wonder if Monsters and Memories accidentally created an accessibility problem as a result. That's a bold claim, so let me explain before everyone writes me off as the player that couldn't handle a bard. The Bard Deep Dive isn't actually out yet, and at the time I'm filming this video, the development team didn't have a finalized priority list that they could share. However, multiple recent dev streams have indicated that they are making every attempt to get those class deep dives out before the game launches into early access, or premature release, whatever they've agreed to call it. But until that deep dive drops, the official website and our own hands-on testing will have to do. According to the official site, the Bard is a constant performer, always moving and weaving music into the flow of battle. Their magic comes from layering multiple songs together, creating shifting waves of support, disruption, and control. But if we strip away the beautiful lore text, we know what the class actually is. The pure multitasking high APM class of Monsters and Memories. You are a jack of all trades, and your core mechanic is song twisting. Each song effect lasts several seconds, but you cast them sequentially. If you are fast enough, you can overlap them to keep 3 to 5 completely different buffs active at the same time. Sometimes it feels like someone looked at the Bard and asked, what if they just never stopped moving? You can cast your songs while sprinting, sitting down, looting dead bodies, or actively swinging your weapon. Additionally, if things go completely sideways, you are the safety net. Alongside enchanters and inquisitors, bards are great for crowd control, equipped with mez and charm abilities. Now, if you are a solo bard player like me, the strategy here is so much fun. I love charm soloing. You charm an enemy, force it to fight another monster, and just keep that beautiful charm-killing rhythm-based loop rolling. But here's what I've been told is changing. Right now, the Bard's current song selection is a little thin on the damage, and those instruments, they've basically functioned as optional glorified stat bonuses rather than a central part of the playstyle. Both of those things are getting completely overhauled. Additionally, they are introducing dedicated social and non-combat songs, finally giving the Bard some literal room to contribute everywhere in the world. But with every rebalance, the patch notes giveth and the patch notes taketh away. Here is what we're going to see less of. Charm is officially being removed as a sustained, permanent playstyle. No, they're taking away my pet battles. No more forcing an angry beetle to fight a slightly angrier beetle for 18 seconds while I watch from the sidelines. And honestly, losing charm isn't even the real reason I quit playing Bard. Let's look at the history here. Historically, the Bard is one of my absolute favorite D&D classes. But do you know what a D&D Bard does? It uses simplified mechanics. It doesn't require constant upkeep of song twisting. That mechanic was popularized by EverQuest 27 long years ago. And I do not understand why modern games feel the need to sustain it nearly 3 decades later. Why are we gatekeeping music behind carpal tunnel syndrome? But here we are, and it is the exact fundamental reason why I quit the class. Look, I am really quite fond of Monsters and Memories. I love this project. And I genuinely respect that the dev team tries to take their own unique spin on classic D&D or EQ source materials. But Bard twisting has a fundamental accessibility problem. It creates an unnecessary physical demand on your wrists and fingers that modern MMO design simply does not have to require anymore. It turns supporting your party into a constant maintenance exercise where you are watching timers instead of the fight. And look, before the classic get good crowd and my lovely local haters come out in the comments and say, "Oh, Penny just can't hack it as a bard. She should go play a different game." To you I say, welcome to my channel. I can't hack it as a lot of things. Bards are just one of many in a very long, highly documented list. But I really, truly don't think the Monsters and Memories team wants me and thousands of players like me to completely walk away from their games simply because we disagree with their decision to keep song twisting as the defining feature of a bard. Accessibility matters, even in an old school world. Yes, caffeinated, double-jointed finger acrobats are obviously going to declare their dominance here. But for me, it's a mechanic that can die on the design floor from which it was forged. But since I love the class, I was desperate to make it work by using a programmable mouse to twist songs. If you've never played one of these old school bards, twisting simply means constantly cycling songs before they expire. Miss the rhythm and your buffs start falling off. So every few seconds for your entire play session, you are refreshing songs. To fix the physical strain of twisting songs, players use automation. I used my mouse's built-in button assigning macro feature to have one mouse button cycle through songs 1, 2, and 3, and so on, pausing between each. This allowed me to meet the current bard twisting standards without destroying my fingers. However, a recent game announcement said, "We've been pretty slack in actioning on automation. From this point forward, all your auto clickers, bot software, and anything that automates gameplay will have a harder stance on. We've been testing our detection tools since beta started, and we know who you are." I asked for clarification from Shawn about this in a recent stream.
Hey, what's going on, Penny? Penny asked, I want to clarify the recent statement about automation. Where do mouse macros fall under the new policy? For the time being, and I do believe this is going to be something that we have to continue to discuss because we've discussed hardware automation a bit in the past because we've tracked it and then we've talked to people and sorry, I got distracted. And then we've kind of revamped the policy and then looked at it again. So our goal is to make sure that we're not being too slack on people having an unfair advantage over others and essentially slowly working towards sliding down the automation slope towards botting, essentially. Right? So at the moment, if you're macroing, if you're automating button presses in certain ways with your hardware, we will probably inquire as to what's going on. I'm trying to be a little bit vague, and this will be a thing where I'll say one thing and then we'll probably enforce it in slightly a different way or whatever. And then we'll have to talk more as people are like, whoa, why did Trent just talk to me? And then, the CS guys are extremely
After the stream, GM Trent clarified in Discord. Remapping keys is not automation. It doesn't matter if you remap them to a mouse or a keyboard or a controller. In whatever software you are using to remap them, if you make a single button press do two things, that's automation. Since my single button press did two things, I figured it was automation, and I immediately stopped playing a bard. However, at this point, this stopped being a bard discussion for me. It became an accessibility discussion. For players with disabilities, motor impairments, arthritis, repetitive strain injuries, and yes, even missing fingers. Sorry, Shawn. Traditional twisting requires intensive, rapid-fire keystrokes. One accessibility solution can be hardware or software that reduces repetitive input. The very thing Monsters and Memories is banning. I know the argument is that they don't want automation to give players benefits, but accessibility tools aren't designed to let someone outperform other players. They're designed to let someone participate. We don't remove wheelchair ramps and power-assisted doors because able-bodied people use them. Accessibility features help everyone. It's called the curb-cut effect. It doesn't make them unfair, it makes them good design. I completely understand why the developers are concerned about automation. Nobody wants botting, nobody wants AFK gameplay, and nobody wants scripts playing the game for people. Those are all very legitimate concerns. However, I don't think an accessibility macro that presses the same buttons a player would otherwise press with their fingers belongs in the same conversation as botting. At this point, I don't expect to convince anyone to remove twisting from Bard gameplay. So all I can do is hope that accessibility becomes part of the conversation. I don't think the developers intended to create this problem. I think they inherited a classic mechanic that many veteran players genuinely enjoy. My concern isn't that twisting exists. My concern is what happens when the only comfortable way for some people to physically perform that mechanic falls under the automation policy. I loved the idea of playing a bard. I just couldn't comfortably play one. And I have a feeling I'm not the only player who quietly walked away. Until next time, keep exploring. I'll see you in the next world.